Welcome to Fair Territory Division Series Edition. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo on this Friday. It's a Friday. That's right. We're going to talk about the conclusion to the Dodgers-Phillies series, which, of course, was one of the more dramatic things you will ever see. We're going to talk about the 2 Game 5s ahead, and we're going to talk about all kinds of other things regarding the division series and baseball as well. But the big story of the day, the big story really of the division series so far, is the conclusion of the Dodgers-Phillies Game 4 last night. You all saw it by now. Orion Kerkering, the play at the plate, it didn't happen. 2 outs. He could have gone to first. JT Realmuto was pointing at him to go to first. And it was just one of the more shocking conclusions and also one of the more difficult things to watch that you'll ever see. And Kerkering is a guy who's come onto the scene. He's been really good. He panicked, obviously, in that moment. I believe all of us have had moments in our jobs when we've panicked, and I would expect most people would have sympathy, even the harshest of fans, for what he is going through right now. You could see after the game, Alanna, obviously, he bent over on the mound. He was sitting in the dugout just staring at the field. Matt Gelb, The Athletic, wrote a terrific story today about how the Phillies gathered around him in support, because the players understand. The players understand that things happen on the field, and sometimes you can't account for them. And let's keep in mind, too, it's like an umpire's call. No one thing decides a game. If the Phillies had scored earlier, if they had not been 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position, if they had not squandered opportunities, of course this game could have been a lot different. So everyone has sympathy for Orion Kerkering. And I want to show you, before we bring Alanna in, this quote from Howie Rose, the legendary Mets announcer, on Twitter. He said, "I don't care who you root for, but if you can't find even an ounce of compassion for Orion Kerkering, you are undoubtedly devoid of a soul." Alanna, I know obviously from a Dodgers standpoint, this was a great outcome, but anybody who loves the sport could sympathize with what happened last night with Orion Kerkering.
Ken, you'd never want the load of what happened last night to fall on one player. And let's be quite honest here. The Philadelphia Phillies are not advancing to the CS, not because of Orion Kerkering. If you take a look, Ken, at the lack of offense in critical times, which I know you're going to dive deeper into, that's why the Phillies are not going to the CS. Has nothing to do with the mental gaffe from Orion Kerkering. And we'll talk about that a little bit more and how I feel about that and what I hope Phillies fans do in the future about this situation. But Ken, let's talk about the lack of offense when it mattered the most for the Phils.
No, Alanna, that's a great point. And here is the key tweet from Jeff Kerr of CBS last night. Sums it all up. Turner, Schwarber, and Harper. Turner, the batting champion. Schwarber, 50-plus home runs. Bryce Harper, one of the postseason legends of our time. Their combined stats right there. Game 1, 1 for 11. Game 2, 1 for 10. Game 3, 7 for 13. Okay, that was a good one. Game 4, 1 for 14. Now, in fairness to the Phillies, a lot of this had to do with the brilliant Dodgers pitching, just as the Dodgers' struggles in this series had to do with the brilliant Phillies pitching. The Dodgers hit 199 in this series. The Phillies hit 213. So you can only be so harsh because the pitching was so good. But the problem for the Phillies, as you step back now and take a broader look at this, this is the 3rd straight year they've suffered a traumatic defeat. Actually, the 4th straight year they've suffered a traumatic defeat. World Series in 22, NLCS in 23, DS to the Mets in 24, and now this series to the Dodgers. JT Realmuto said that this wasn't as painful as last year because they felt they lost to a really good team. But now with Realmuto and Schwarber free agents, with Rob Thompson in a bit of an uncertain place as the manager, you just wonder what is going to be with this franchise. That's how traumatic this whole thing is going to be for them, Alanna.
And Ken, you saw it last night when Kyle Schwarber was addressing the media. He was clearly emotional. As you mentioned, he and JT Realmuto are entering a free agency period for them. He'd love, I would imagine, to finish his career, talking about Schwarber, as a Philly, but you don't know what's going to happen. I realize it's very premature to sit here and talk about it on October 10th, but there is a good possibility that we're not going to see Schwarber in a Phillies uniform next year. And I think these guys in that clubhouse, in that dugout, realizing that their locker mates may not be the same guys next year as there were today. And there's relationships there.
No question. And they want to re-sign Schwarber and Realmuto. Ranger Suarez, another potential free agent, the expectation there is they probably will lose him, and they have more of an ability to replace a Suarez with Andrew Painter coming up and all of that. But sure, there are questions now that were lingering the whole season and then have lingered over this team. And there's been a lot of talk in recent days about the Yankees' failures in the postseason. Well, the Phillies have kind of had a similar run here, at least the last 4 years. And what it underscores again is how difficult it is to win the World Series in an era where you have an expanded postseason, in an era where money doesn't always buy you everything. Teams are more competitive now. It's really hard. So we will see where this all turns with the Phillies, but obviously that was a very difficult loss for them in so many ways. So Alanna, let's turn, I guess, to game fives. And let's start with the Cubs and the Brewers. Cubs rallying from 2 games to none down. They now have to go back to Milwaukee to win with
Home
their
cooking's
pitching.
been good. Home cooking's
Home
been good
cooking's
in
been
that
good.
series. I tell you what, both home teams have won their games, Ken. So what does that mean? Is it Milwaukee's turn in game five?
You would think, but the pitching of both teams, Alanna, is kind of in shambles. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where this is going. And for the Cubs, Imanaga is going to have to play some kind of role. There's a starter or following an opener as he did in the Padres series. He is the guy lined up to pitch, usually prefers an extra day's rest, won't get one here. And they have others in the bullpen, maybe an Aaron Savali, maybe a Colin Ray, who will have to step up because they're in a funky place with their pen right now, even with the days off here. And then the Brewers are kind of in a similarly difficult situation. The Miz is going to play a prominent role as a bulk guy, most likely, in this game, but they're going to need contributions from others as well. And for me, this is a coin flip. Whenever you get to a game five, it's a total coin flip. Home field certainly helps the Brewers, and they play really well at Miller Park. But Alanna, who knows what's going to happen here?
You know, Ken, it's crazy too, because if you think about the other side of things in the American League Division Series, it's a game five for the Detroit Tigers as well as the Seattle Mariners. AJ Hinch and the Tigers hoping that home cooking is not the thing going on because they're going back, of course, to Seattle for game five. What's interesting to me, Ken, is that Tarek Skubal is going to take the mound, as he should. But the Tigers have lost every Tarek Skubal start this season against the Mariners. How much is that in their head?
I don't know if it's in their head. That is one of those baseball things, Alana, to me, that is likely to reverse. It's one of these fluky things that just occur. Now, Tarek Skubal is in an interesting spot here. And I wrote about this. Actually, I have an essay coming out on the pregame show tonight about Tarek Skubal and this whole circumstance. So he is likely to be the back-to-back American League Cy Young winner. We can pretty confidently predict that. In American League history, only Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, and Roger Clemens have won back-to-back Cy Youngs. There are a few more who have done it in the National League. So he's going to be the fourth. And that is quite an accomplishment. But last year, game five against Cleveland, what happened? He goes through 4 scoreless, then gives up the bases loaded walk to Jose Ramirez, and then the grand slam to Lane Thomas. That was game five last year. Here we go with game five this year, again on the road. And all eyes are on him. He's going to be the back-to-back Cy Young guy. And it wouldn't be fair to say Tarek Skubal is some kind of not clutch performer if he doesn't pitch well tonight. But this is a big situation. He has a 2.13 ERA in the postseason for his career. This is not a guy who has performed poorly. And in game 2, he gave up the 2 homers by Polanco, solo shots, but otherwise was really good. So it's a defining moment for him. It's a big moment for the Tigers. And we're going to see, too, if Seattle can finally get back to the ALCS with George Kirby on the mound. They've had the magical run from Raleigh, who has been great even in the postseason. I don't know where this is going to go tonight. I don't know that anyone does, but it's going to be really interesting for sure.
Well, whomever wins will face the Toronto Blue Jays. And Ken, I believe that you are in Toronto now. But win or lose, Tiger Territory is going to have it all covered with the Athletics Tiger beat reporter Cody Stavenhagen, Kieran Steckley, former Tiger Austin Jackson. So make sure that you tune into either a Game 5 win for those guys or a post-mortem of the Detroit Tigers. It is time for Grillin Ken. We appreciate the opportunity for those of us that are watching and listening to us here, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, to ask Ken Rosenthal a question. So we're going to start with Neil. He has a question in regards to Clayton Kershaw, who obviously did not have a good outing out of the pen in Game 3 for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So we'll go to this question here, and it is, Ken, has Kershaw pitched his last game? Do you think Kersh, future Hall of Famer, is on the Dodgers roster for the CS?
Wow, great question. I don't know the answer to that. Probably it would depend somewhat on the health of Tanner Scott, but actually Tanner Scott is out for the next series, so I shouldn't even mention that. I do expect he'll be on the roster. I don't know what is the better option here. They still can have a spot for Kersh. No, he didn't pitch well in that particular circumstance the other night, but part of it was in going back out had to do with Tanner Scott not being available.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a fair question, Alanna, but what do you think on this one?
Well, I can't imagine a world, Ken, and before let me preface this conversation with everybody knows that I am a Dodger fan, and everybody knows that I am a Clayton apologist, but for a good reason. I will defend Clayton Kershaw till my dying breath. I can't imagine a world in which Clayton Kershaw is not on the postseason roster. That being said, I also think people look at it as he came out of the bullpen and he didn't perform well. I look at it differently. At the time that Kersh came out of the bullpen, we did not realize that Tanner Scott had that lower body incision abscess situation, right? So, okay, maybe Kershaw was kind of taking one for the team. Did he have his best stuff? Absolutely not. But they were down Tanner Scott. So I give that a little bit more weight in terms of perhaps that is the reason that he went back out there for a second inning. I think Kersh is on the CS roster. Okay, another question here in terms of the New York Yankees. Ken C. Carrera has this to say: what has the NYY management done wrong?
Wow. We could
How
talk a
much
long
time do
time
you have?
about this. Now, I wrote my column yesterday about this whole situation. And what I wrote was that based on the outcome of this season and the series against Toronto, it does not seem to me that alone is enough to have a management change in New York, either with Brian Cashman, the general manager, or Aaron Boone, the manager. I know a lot of Yankee fans hated that column and hated that premise. And certainly you can make the case that Boone, now 8 years in, Cash 27 years in, they have not won a World Series. Okay, you want to make that case. That's fine. But this season, I don't know that they did all that much wrong. I'll start with Cashman. So Cashman pivots from Juan Soto after they lose him to the New York Mets. They get Fried, they get Goldschmidt, they get Bellinger, they get Devin Williams. Devin Williams didn't work out great, but he wasn't horrible either, and the other three were pretty good. Then the deadline, he fortifies the bullpen, picks up some bench players. I don't know that they did a lot wrong. They were better defensively down the stretch. Not great, but better. More athletic. They just got beat. And in this day and age, a lot of people have a hard time accepting it when their team just gets beat. They got beat by a better team. And at some point, it's on the players too. Fried and Rodon pitched poorly. The offense, really besides Judge, was not good. So I'll excuse Cashman on that. And I don't even know how you can look at Boone and say it was his fault, because they just got, again, outplayed. They won 94 games. They should have, yes, won the division, but they lost the tiebreaker to the Blue Jays. They had that midseason lull that was brutal, but they came out of it. They beat the Red Sox. At some point, you've got to look at this a little bit reasonably. Now, if Hal Steinbrenner, the owner, said, you know what, I do want to make a change, I want to do something different, I get that. Okay. Then you got to find someone better than these two. Now, you might find a better manager easier than a better general manager than Brian Cashman, believe it or not, but these jobs are not easy. So obviously I stand by what I wrote, and I know a lot of Yankee fans feel differently, and I totally respect that and get it. But this idea that if a season does not end in a World Series title, it's a failure, it's ridiculous. It's simply ridiculous. As I said before, Alanna, it's really hard to win a World Series, period.
And it just goes to show you, and I've said this 1,000 times, money buys good players, Ken Rosenthal. It does not buy wins, and it does not buy championships. Now the New York Yankees are in Cancun with the New York Mets and the Boston Red Sox and a number of other teams too. So it just goes to show you, money helps. It's not the end all be all. Switching to the Phillies, who are now also on their way to Cancun. Video Game Nation wants to know, do you think Dave Dombrowski is a threat to be dismissed of president of baseball operations of the Phillies?
Absolutely not. And Bob Nightingale, the USA Today, wrote a long story about Dombrowski and Middleton in their relationship, the owner, John Middleton. And basically, John Middleton wants Dombrowski to be the POBO forever. The real question here is Rob Thompson. And it's not simply a question of whether the Phillies want him back. It might also be a question of whether he wants to be back. A manager goes through these things, and it's difficult. So I would expect when things settle down, he would want to be back. But if you're the Phillies, maybe you look at this and the successive playoff failures, and they've come earlier each year, and you say, okay, we want to do something different. Dave Dombrowski could make that decision. That would not surprise me. But I honestly think Rob Thompson is a good manager for this team. And the compassion he showed last night with Kerkering coming off the field and in his news conference, those were the hallmarks of a leader. So to me, Rob Thompson should be back if he wants to be back. And the question is going to be, do the Phillies want him back? That's number one.
Kyle Schwarber, Ken, what do you think his market is? He's a DH, obviously 50 home runs this season, 50 plus home runs this season. He is going to be 33 in March, which, as we know in baseball terminology, you might as well be 1 foot in the grave. But what do you think is his market? What's his ceiling? What's his market? Where do you see him?
I see him at 4 years, getting a fourth year, and I see him at 30 million plus. So 4 years, 120 minimum, and that's probably around where he'll be either with the Phillies or someone else. Now, there are teams that could really use Kyle Schwarber, just as there are teams that could really use Pete Alonso. And they're not only the teams that they play for. So it could get interesting with both. In Alonso's case, he won't have a qualifying offer this year. I don't believe Schwarber is eligible for one either. I can't remember that exactly. But both those guys, because power is at such a premium right now, and it's so difficult to find hitters like this, they should do well.
Ken, where do you think a better fit would be in terms of the Boston Red Sox as at a DH, first base, whatever? Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber.
That's a right-left question. And they would have to decide which do they prefer, the right-handed hitter or the left-handed hitter. Most of their outfielders are left-handed hitters. I don't know that figures into it. It kind of depends on Bregman, too. If they lose Bregman, then you need a right-handed hitter. And you have Story, but really at that point you would need the right-handed thumper. So Alonso is in many ways a very good fit for the Red Sox. And that's going to be a really interesting one because how badly do the Mets want him? How badly do they want to mix it up after what happened to them this season? This offseason is going to be wild, as it always is. And some of these questions, Alanna, are going to be really interesting to see play out.
When you think about the Red Sox, I know the Red Sox were eliminated in the wild card round to the New York Yankees, but when you think about the Red Sox, Ken, and their pending free agents, who do you think is more likely to opt out or in? Bregman, Story, Giolito. When you look at those guys, who do you think opts in? Who do you think opts out?
Bregman is out. I don't even know there's any question about that. I know the salary is $40 million a year, but he's owed 2 years and 80, something like that. He'll beat that as a free agent. He'll beat the total. He might not beat the AAV, but if he gets, 6 times 30, he's pretty happy if that's the number. So he's opting out. And the Red Sox will be in there trying to keep him because as we've seen with Alex Bregman, not only is it the performance on the field, he makes everyone around him better. He's almost like another coach in the dugout. So Bregman is immensely valuable to the Red Sox and what they do. Giolito, I would expect, opts in, although starting pitching, maybe he chooses to do something else. And Story, I would say, opts in too. But I don't know. In Story's case, you may look at the shortstop market and say, you know what? It's pretty thin. Bo Bichette, most teams don't look at him as a shortstop. Maybe Trevor Story says, I will opt out and see what I can get out there. But at the same time, he's not coming off an amazing year. He's coming off an improved year. So it's going to be an interesting decision for him.
Yeah, I think Boston is good for Story, and I think he likes it there. But I agree with you on all of those counts in terms of who opts in and out. It's always going to be fun in the offseason going into next year. All right, coming up, we're talking about our dude and dork of the week. Stay with us. We'll be right back. BetMGM players will receive an MLB Parlay Boost token. To use the token, add a parlay wager made up of entirely MLB bets to your bet slip and activate the token. Score extra winnings if your wager that was made with the Parlay Boost token wins. Gambling problem or concern? There is help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Dude.
All right, Ken, who is your dude of the week for this week?
Actually, Alanna, I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, I get to go first. Okay, so my dude of the week is Orion Kirkering, and I realized that the play at the plate and throwing to the wrong base was obviously a mental lapse. But for this young man who is only 24 years old to go out there and face the media and answer questions, if I can get on Jazz Chisholm Jr. for not talking to the media and turning his back, I want to give props to this kid who very easily could have been so embarrassed and so heartbroken that he didn't address. You can see him there holding back tears. It was a very emotional moment. But I appreciate the fact that he was candid and honest and raw and answered the questions. And I hope to God, and Pedro Martinez said this the best on TBS last night, that do not allow this talent to carry this load for the rest of his career. And I agree. Everyone's been there in this game, Ken. Everyone's made a mistake. We've done it in our careers where we've all made mistakes we wish we could take back. So Orion Kirkering, this does not define you. This is not who you are. You are my dude of the week.
Great call. And I was waiting for you, Alanna, because I wasn't sure where you were going to go exactly. But I've got two. Rōki Sasaki obviously has to be dude of the week. We didn't give him enough love in the first segment.
True.
That 3-inning performance last night was just brilliant, and he's been brilliant the whole postseason. And for coming back from what he came back from, the injury and the mental questions about him, all of the things, the transition from Japan to the U.S. as a 23-year-old, that is impressive. My other dude of the week, and we haven't talked enough about this guy either, Vlad Jr. My goodness. What a
Yes.
series he had against the Yankees. And it was kind of out of nowhere because he didn't have a great September and there were concerns. Bichette's not behind him and all that, but he was brilliant. And the other night on Fox after the game,
I know.
when he did the Yankees lose, it was just hilarious. So
that was so good.
Vlad Jr., Rōki Sasaki, both dudes of the week. Now, I want to get into something right here because Dave Roberts, didn't he say last night, Alanna, that Rōki Sasaki's bullpen performance was the greatest performance by a reliever ever or something like that?
I did not hear that part. And I know you have somebody else in mind. Who is it, Ken?
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Dave said, you're talking about one of the great all-time appearances out of the pen that I can remember. Dave, let's go back to 2014. Now, I know it's a long time ago at this point. Madison Bumgarner closing out the World Series with 5 scoreless. I think that's a little bit better than Rōki last night.
Listen, Rosenthal. No Dodger fan or manager wants to remember 2014 and the San Francisco Giants. We just blocked that out completely. I did have a text conversation with Dave Roberts this morning about Rōki Sasaki, and I talked to him about what a transition, right? Remember back early on when Rōki Sasaki was in the dugout crying because of a bad performance. It was almost as if he didn't understand, he'd not understand. That's not fair. It's a difficult transition, right? From Japan to Major League Baseball. And Dave was like, if you take that picture, like we are right now, side by side of Rōki Sasaki crying and then striking out JT Realmuto, what a stark contrast. So yes, Rōki is the Dodgers closer I did not know that team needed. Okay. Who is your dork of the week?
Well, my dork of the week goes back to the New York Yankees and the performance of their players. And I'm going to give it to all of their hitters besides Aaron Judge. Now, I'm being a little unfair to Ryan McMahon and Giancarlo Stanton, who were not horrible. But the offense outside of Judge, granted, they faced great pitching, particularly in the first 2 games, the starters, Gossman and Yasavage, and then the bullpen game in Game 4. But come on. The Yankees are built on offense. They had the highest scoring offense in the major leagues. Yes, the most home runs as well, but they could score in other ways, and they simply did not produce. So the Yankees hitters, other than Judge, dorks of the week.
All right, my dork of the week, I'm on a preemptive strike here, Ken. I'm not saying these people are dorks yet, but let's make sure they don't become dorks. Anybody that wants to give Orion Kirkering grief or crap about what happened, do not do that. I understand you can be upset about what had happened in that situation, but let's not put the weight of the world on this young man who already feels horrific about what happened. Again, as Pedro Martinez said, do not let this talent carry the load for the rest of his career. He's a very good pitcher, a very good talent, and he has a great career ahead. So let's be kind.
Alanna, I've got a prediction. Opening day next year, Philadelphia, standing ovation for Orion Kirkering.
I hope so. It helped Trea Turner. It helped, let's do it. Absolutely. Mookie Betts, when he was, hitting a buck, and they gave him a standing ovation. helped too. By the way, extra credit as far as due to the week, we should have said this earlier, to Nick Castellanos, who absolutely bolted in, Ken, from right field to comfort Orion Kirkering on the mound. Imagine where Nick Castellanos was, obviously, and you saw him walking with Kirkering into the dugout before Rob Thompson stopped him to talk to Kirkering. Good on you, Nick Castellanos, for holding up one of your teammates. I mean, this is why we love this game. But remember, guys, they're people before they're players.
No doubt. And Nick did great things there. And really, the entire clubhouse rallied around him last night because, as you said, Alanna, and we'll maybe close it out with this, the players understand, man. They understand better than anyone, and they know how difficult the game is to play.
No doubt about it. All right. If you're watching on TV, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. We have a couple more minutes, actually. And that's it. We're back on Monday.